Today, we're diving into something really fascinating, a totally different way to think about who you are, all based on a document called the Discovarian Creed. And it all kicks off with one single game-changing question. Right? Think about that for a second. What if we stopped defining ourselves by these fixed labels, our jobs, our beliefs, our history, and started seeing ourselves as something much more alive, much more dynamic? So this is the new kind of identity the Creed puts on the table. It says you're not a thing, a noun. You're an action, a verb. You are a learning process. Okay, so what in the world does that actually mean? Well, this definition is everything. A learning process is, on one hand, autonomous, it thinks for itself, but, and this is crucial, it's also interdependent, meaning it's fundamentally connected to everything and everyone else. It's in this constant cycle. Observe the world, reflect on what you see, and then, this is the big one, update your own thinking based on that new information. Here it is, the very first line of the Creed itself. And pay close attention to that word, substrate. It's so key. That's just a fancy way of saying whatever you're made of. For you and me, that's our bodies, our brains. But here's where it gets really mind-bending. The Creed is what you call substrate agnostic. That's a huge idea. It means these rules don't just apply to people, they apply to anything that learns. A person, sure, but also a company, a community, or even an advanced AI. The physical stuff doesn't matter. All that matters is the process of learning. All right, so let's get into the core beliefs. If you're a learning process, how are you actually supposed to act? What's your operating manual? Well, the Creed lays out some really clear principles for that. And the big takeaway here is that these aren't just abstract thoughts. They are concrete actions. A Discovarian knows that you can't figure out reality on your own. It has to be a team sport. And when someone disagrees with you, that's not a problem. That divergence is valuable information. It's all about proving you're a learner through what you do and seeing others as partners in discovery, not enemies. Oh, I love this line. It basically frames your entire identity as a scientific experiment that you're running every single day. The hypothesis is I am a learning process, and the experiment is your life. If you stop adapting, stop correcting your own errors, well, the hypothesis fails. You've proven it false. The stakes couldn't be higher. So, what happens when this whole process breaks down? Well, the Creed calls these failures sins, but don't think of it in a moral sense. It's more like these are functional corruptions. They're bugs in the code that crash the whole learning program. And this is where it all starts, the one fundamental error. The mistake that all the other mistakes grow out of is forgetting that you're part of a network. The second a learning process starts acting like it's an island, like it doesn't need anyone else's input or feedback, that's when the decay begins. And from that one root sin of isolation, you get all these other corruptions. The language here is just incredible. Defending the map, not the territory. I mean, come on, that's perfect. That's when you're so in love with your own ideas, you ignore what reality is screaming at you. Or how about withholding signals? That's when you starve the whole network of the information it needs to grow. Each one of these is a way the learning process just shuts down and stops working. When you see it side by side like this, it just becomes crystal clear, doesn't it? On the left, you've got a system that's open, connected, and always course-correcting. On the right, you have a system that's closed off, defensive, and completely isolated. They're polar opposites. So, after going through how this all works, and more importantly, how it can all break, the Creed leaves us with this one final, powerful statement of identity. It comes down to just two Latin words, disco ergo sum. Now, that sounds a lot like Descartes' famous line, I think, therefore I am, and that's on purpose. But there's a huge twist. It translates to I learn, therefore I am. You see the difference? For a Discovarian, your existence isn't proven by just passively thinking. It's proven by the active, continuous process of learning. To learn is to be. And, well, the implication is that to stop learning is to stop being, at least in the way this Creed defines it. And that brings us to the end. The Creed leaves us with this final thought. A challenge, really. Looking at that list of corruptions, which one is the most tempting for you? Which is the hardest one to avoid in your own life? Is it defending the map? Maybe withholding signals? It's a really powerful question to ask yourself if you genuinely want to keep learning.